Welcome back to the Business Bliss vlog, where we share our experiences and discuss relevant topics for entrepreneurs and business owners.
So today we're going to talk about effective communication. So this topic is very important. What do you think that is, Liliana?
Well, it's extremely important because it's the way in which we communicate and we express ourselves and make ourselves understood in front of all different parties that we deal in business. It can be our employees, our customers, it can be the bank when we're going to ask for a loan, everyone where we want to express, and it's very important to have ourselves well understood.
So this topic is far too complex and advanced in order to cover that in 5 minutes. So we're going to put some links below where you can read further. But let's try to at least cover the most important factors. So the first one is the principles of rhetoric. So you have ethos, pathos, and logos. So ethos is basically about your character, how you convey trust and credibility. So it could be your body posture, your tone of voice, how confident you appear, and basically something about yourself. So why should they listen to you? So what knowledge do you have and bring to the table? And pathos is more about how you relate to other people's feelings. It could be the energy in how you're speaking. It could be storytelling, how you basically influence other people's emotions. And then you have logos. Logos is basically about your reasoning, your logics, and it has to be tied to evidence. So why should people trust you?
Yeah, and that's very interesting. Tell us a little bit more about the area of effective questioning.
Well, questioning to begin with is very important because that's where you get the information from the person, so you know where to focus your discussion. And especially in sales, it's extremely important. You need to understand and get as much information as possible about the customers, their need, their priorities, and so on.
So what's the difference between open and closed questions?
Open questions, you get more information from the one you're talking to. An example of a closed question could be, do you work with sustainability?
Yes.
And it quickly becomes quite awkward because then you have to quickly ask another question and so on. So the idea is to make you talk. So I want to make an open question. So I would like to say, instead of do you work with sustainability, I would say, how do you work with sustainability?
Okay. So I tell you about the process, the people, whatever it is that we do.
Exactly. And then I can, of course, drill down and ask you more questions. If something is not very clear, then I can ask you to maybe elaborate a bit more and so on. But the idea is to make you talk so that you give me as much information as possible.
Okay, good. Now tell me about active listening, because okay, now you got the questions, but what about the answers?
We have basically 4 levels of listening. The first one is hearing. So I hear what you say. The second level is I'm listening to what you're saying. And the third level is I'm listening where you're going with what you're saying. And the fourth level is active listening. So what is active listening? Well, active listening is complete and 100% attention to you, to what you're saying. So take away all the distractions, mobile phone and so on, and really listening to you, but listening to you with my ears and with my eyes. So here, I'm not only listening to what you're saying, I'm also looking at your body language and trying to understand what you're saying from different perspectives. And I also try to maybe confirm that I have understood what you're saying.
Oh, that sounds like the dream of every wife.
Yeah, I guess I have to practice that more often.
How about adaptive communication?
Well, that's another area which I think is very important because it's not. So we of course we have 3 principles of rhetoric. We have the effective questioning, and then you need to listen actively as well. But I think that there's another area as well which is sometimes overlooked, because we all have different personalities and different focus. So for example, I need to try to read the person in front of me and understand what kind of personalities do they have. This can be also adapting to if a person is more reflective, speaking with a calm manner, and so on. So if you're doing that and you're a more of an analytical person that are speaking in a certain way, a little bit more calmly, then I can't be the Duracell rabbit with high energy and so on, because again, that will probably not create rapport. So I'm trying to adapt my communication to the way you are speaking.
That sounds a little bit more like persuasion also. It has to do with persuasion.
Well, that's everything that we're trying to do. I'm trying to persuade you of an idea, or of that I have a product that is very good for your business, or something else. So in order to do that, obviously, I need to first understand you, where you're coming from and so on. And I need to try to sympathize with you and your feelings and your opinions. And then I need to position whatever I'm trying to convince you of in a good way, so that you feel trust with me. If I understand how you want to be treated and what you want to focus on, and I adapt to that, I'm pretty sure that we're going to create better rapport and we're going to click better when we're communicating. And that's what we want to do, right? We're going to create relations and trust. Building trust, that's what it's all about.
That is all very interesting. So sad we have so short time, or time goes so fast. Anyways, next week we're going to talk about networking, and we're going to leave you today with
a famous quote, as usual.
People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou.
Until next time, stay safe and stay positive.